Prep Football Picks. I'm Scott Meese along with Les Winkler and Pete Spitler. We're going to talk about some of what we would consider to be the bigger games of the week. But first of all, Les, what did you think of Week 1? Pretty interesting week. If I had to, really something open my eyes a little bit, it would be probably El Dorado's big win up at Carmi. That's a huge win for Brandon Hampton and the Eagles.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest surprise of the week. Carmi went through the Black Diamond undefeated last year, has a lot of good players back, and people were telling us that El Dorado was going to be much improved this year, and apparently that projection was right on the money. That was a very nice win for that program.
Pete, your thoughts on Week 1?
Just kind of piggyback a little bit on what Les said. I was the only person who picked El Dorado to beat Carmi. I just had some concerns about Carmi up front, and El Dorado's a proud program. They got in the right direction, and I think it was a game that could have gone either way. And a lot of the games that we saw in Week 1 could have gone either way. I mean, I know Murphy was in it for a while against Carbondale, and maybe they had a chance if some things had gone differently with turnovers. They could have had a better chance, but. Honestly, it just seemed like a really well-played, generally speaking, Week 1.
Let's move right into this week's games. We've got Heron 1-0 after win over Massac County, in which they scored 60 points last week. You don't always see that in any game, especially the opening week. And they travel to Carbondale to take on the Terriers 1-0. They knocked off Murphy. What are your thoughts on this one, Pete?
Obviously, with Heron, like everybody now knows, they're fairly young. But there's a difference between Carbondale and Massac County. Carbondale has weapons, they have speed, and I feel that they're a totally different, totally different animal than what Massac County was, and I have to go with Carbondale on this one.
Les, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. You're stepping up a level in competition just with size and depth and things like that. Experience. Carbondale's got some experienced kids back. Obviously, Heron's got some ability to put 60 points on the board against anybody, but I think it's going to be a tall order to beat Carbondale Friday night.
I'm going to go with Carbondale as well. Heron won last year by 2 touchdowns, but this is pretty much a new Heron team. No more Antoine Davis or DeMarlo Harris or any of these guys, and I think the Terriers will be just a little bit too much. Could be a good football game. Heron has some good young talent. Moving along, Murfreesboro at AJ. Red Devils 0-1. They were only down, I think, maybe 5-6 points a little late in the game there. About 5 minutes left, but just could not pull it off. They always have a hard time beating Carbondale, and AJ whipped up on West Frankfort pretty good. What are your thoughts on this one, Les?
It makes it hard to call because Murphy played Carbondale last week, which is a step up in competition for them. And nobody expected West Frankfort to have a strong team this year. So again, that 2-day game they played down there, you don't know what to take out of that. It's down at the pit. Brett Dietering always has his guys ready to play. They've been just as consistent as any program in Southern Illinois for the last 10 years. So on that basis alone, I'll go with the Wildcats.
Pete?
Like Les said, it's difficult to predict because you're trying to gauge the difficulty of opponents, and with West Frankfort rebuilding, and then of course Carbondale being, like you mentioned earlier, a step up. At the same point, I got to go with Murfreesboro, even though they made some mistakes last week, and a lot of them you could say were generally legitimate Week 1 mistakes. But I just feel that wing tee and some of the things they have going there are just a real strong, hard thing that AJ is going to have to stop, and I'm going to have to go with Murfreesboro on this one.
I think this could be an excellent football game. I'm going to pick AJ, but I wouldn't be surprised if Murphy won at all. I think it's a kind of a toss-up. Murphy's got some pretty good talent, Bradley in the backfield, and then also him on defense as well. And Kevin Good's a really up-and-coming player, even though he's a senior now. He's an outstanding athlete. I remember him from basketball. I think AJ is just going to be a little bit too much in this one. Moving along, the big game in the Black Diamond, Carmi 0-1, in danger of falling to 0-2 if they can't beat Johnston City on the road. The Indians put it on Cesar, Valier, Waltonville, Woodlawn pretty bad last week. Pete, what are your thoughts on this one?
Obviously, for me, the atmosphere is going to be the biggest. Actually, I should take that back. 2 things. Number one, who learned the most about last week? I mean, obviously Johnston City came away with a victory, while Carmi didn't. But in this game, it's going to be who makes the better adjustments. Johnston City is that great new field. There's going to be a lot of atmosphere. how big is that of a distraction is that going to be for Carmi? And can Carmi rebound from, in their terms, a disappointing week 1? But at the same point, Dan Mings, he had such a great, successful Mount Vernon program. He's built that really strongly at Johnson City, and I got to go with Johnson City in this one.
Les, your thoughts?
I've been flipping coins right up until now to try to pick this one. I saw Carmi several times last year and was just incredibly impressed with their young people. On the other hand, as Pete mentioned, Johnson City is going to be sky high, playing in the brand new facility. It's going to be great. Dan Mings has put together a fantastic program, but there's just that nagging thing in the back of my mind that says Carmi was really, really good last year. They got a lot of kids back. I'm going out on a limb with Carmi again.
I'm going to pick Johnson City. I think they'll be too much at home. They're pretty good up front this year. They've got some good backs, and like Pete said earlier, Carmi, I think their offensive line is going to give them problems this year. So I'll pick Johnson City to win this one, and then Carmi might win out the rest of the season if Chester doesn't get them. Final game. This is interesting. Harrisburg at DuQuoin. DuQuoin in danger of losing, going back to last year, their 3rd game in a row, I think. And DuQuoin a tough loss to Highland by 3 in week 1. Harrisburg a nice 2-touchdown win over Mount Carmel. Les, what are your thoughts on the big Harrisburg at DuQuoin matchup?
I've got to go with Harrisburg in this one. Harrisburg won pretty convincingly over Mount Carmel, and I've talked to several people since. They don't really know. The loss DuQuoin suffered last week has to be kind of disappointing. Highland was coming off an 0-9 year, got a second-year coach up there in Jimmy Warnicki. So, you just looking at the 2 games, you have to favor Harrisburg in this one, in my opinion, and that's what I'm doing. Besides, I live there.
the homer of the staff.
Did your wife make you pick them?
No, it's all on my own.
Good. Seeing DuQuoin last week, obviously offensive line play was the biggest difference between them and Highland. Highland was just so much bigger and really kind of set the tone in the trenches.
And Highland's a 5A school, correct?
Yeah, they're much bigger. I think they've got somewhere around, what do you say, 2,000 students, or is it less than that?
It's a little less than that,
But with DuQuoin, I actually went back and looked up. 2003 was the last time they lost a season opener, but they won the next 7 or 8 games in a row. So if you're looking at past history, this could be the week to turn it around. But Harrisburg, with so many starters back, coming off with at least a big emotional win over Mount Carmel, I think they're going to ride the momentum again this week, and I pick Harrisburg.
I'm going to go with Harrisburg just because it's a safe pick, and I want to win our weekly picks. I know everybody else is going to pick them. So I'll go with Harrisburg. A very talented team. It's hard for me to believe DuQuoin's going to lose 2 games in a row at home to start the season. But I just think Harrisburg's going to be a little bit too much. Indians can still definitely win this football game. I mean, anytime we think DuQuoin is a bad team, maybe bad by DuQuoin standards, meaning they're not going to go undefeated. So I think it should be a great football game and a great atmosphere. But I think Harrisburg's probably a little bit too much. Any other thoughts this week, gentlemen?
No, it's these picks are just kind of pulling things out of the air until you get to about the 4th week of the season and just kind of see how things level out or whatever. So these should be 4 interesting games. I'm looking forward to Friday night to see who wins them all. But yeah, hopefully it'll get easier and we'll be a little bit more efficient with our picks as the season goes on.
And if the hurricane rolls in, we start with that rain. It could be I may have to see if I can find a turf game to cover. I'm going to be over at the Pit in AJ, so I may not be able to get out of that place. But
I don't think El Dorado's put turf in since last week either. So
all right. Well, that wraps up for this week, folks. Join us back next week for week 3, and thanks for watching.